Your main man returns, and today, as you can see, my house is infested with gremlins. And we're going to be talking about our first impressions of Savage Worlds. Now, we played Savage Worlds a total of 3 times, the Suede Edition, and we've played only superheroes. Our friend Steve Fillmore, who has been in a couple of videos on the channel over the years, he is running that as part of our big group. We played last Friday. I guess we'll play next Friday too. Not today is Friday. The Friday after this one, we play every other Friday. I guess is how we'll be doing that one. And we're talking about our impressions of the overall system, and I guess to some degree also the superpower portion of the system, the superpower compendium, companion, I guess it's called. So first, why don't you tell Mr. Gremlin, you tell him what you thought about
Uh,
the system.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a good system. I think it's been easy to learn so far. It's easier to pick up. It's very simple and it works well. So I don't really have a whole lot of complaints other than I'm not crazy about how they do like chases, but I don't necessarily have a problem with it either. I'm just kind of neutral about it. And in terms of like I guess the superpowered portion of it, yeah, I think it's good. I think they do a good job of allowing you to really customize your character on like what they can do because that's a very complicated thing to put into a game, having superpowers. In terms of like the system, so I think they do a good job of that. I like it.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed from the three sessions for the first impressions. Now, I am not a veteran of Savage Worlds. I've had a number of Savage Worlds books for quite some time. I just never got a chance to play them or run them. I almost ran Necessary Evil, but I went with the Mutant as a Masterminds to deliver that game instead. It was very close. I've almost run Sundred Skies. I have those books. We have a large collection of the, well, maybe not a large. We have a decent collection of Savage Worlds books, and there's a few that are randomly around the house. They have gotten away from their sort of initial size, I think, a little bit, and they're kind of in a multitude of different sizes and shapes now. The I contacted and purchased a Suede Savage Rolls book. We have some of the earlier ones. We have these. We have two of this edition. Whoops, that's a horror book. But anyway, we do have two of this edition, and then we have, as you can see, two of these. And one of these was mine for a long time. I just never got around to running it, and there was no one else to run it. And I prefer myself to have someone else run the game for me first. So I told my friend Steve, I said, look at baby, can you run this? Because I am thinking, currently running a Within the Ring of Fire meets Planescape AD&D Second Edition, all over the multiverse, starting Forgotten Realms, been a Ravenloft, going even to some planes like mild planes all over the place. But anyway, the next game I plan to do is Eldritch Skies Savage World, and I guess we're going to bump it up to not Explorers Edition, but to the Suede Edition of Savage Worlds. So I wanted to have my foot in the door so that I could experience and determine if I did want to run it, if I did want to use that system, or if I maybe wanted to take those ideas and shift them over to another system. So far, I've really enjoyed it. Really liked Savage Worlds. Where they say it's fast, furious fun. That isn't so far off the mark. It is easy to learn. It is allows you to have a large breadth of possibilities of creativity, and the superheroes, which is generally a difficult genre for a game to pull off. You have to have a strong system to be able to do that. It's just like Magic. It's one of the things that adds a great deal of complexity to a game, and a game system can certainly break under that, and it seems to hold up absolutely fine. We have a great diversity of character types in the game. My character has the power decay and the power fear, which I've also purchased some of the minor things like some of the armor, some of the parry, I think, as well as I enhanced one of my stats by like one. So it allowed me to do all of this. The character's name is Oblivion, and just by interacting with you, he just starts decaying. He's almost being like unmade. All right, so I sort of took my concept of the warlock from Within the Ring of Fire and took that and put it on somebody, who is nothing at all like that. Someone who's actually a hero. This guy, I have the hindrance heroism. So he's a great guy, and he is like a social influencer, right? So he's a Twitter guy. So it's a very it's kind of a stretch for me to play this guy that's 22 years old and just out of college, and he's on the media. He's doing all these type of things. He's building up this brand for himself, and he has this clothing line, glasses line, like sunglasses line that he puts over. Um, so I took like a little bit of inspiration from like a booster gold type character, although I haven't been able to work any of that in yet because currently we've essentially been hiding. I do have the big mouth and the hindrance um, monologuer, which is fantastic because if I draw on any of the initiative cards, if I draw clubs, my turn's gone. Yet I sit there and I just jabber at them. I basically hit them with that monologue, which is so close to a soliloquy that I thought, well, that's wonderful, and I get a major hindrance for that. But of course, it does cost you multiple turns. You can use bennies to throw back those cards, but trust me, those bennies, and I have the edge luck and the edge attractive. My characters, I imaged them off Zac Efron, and then Steve did some work to really bring it around. I wanted the character to have like a bit of a douchebag quality to him, to put on one side, and he has these powers that are for like the gothic type of character, which he is so far from that. So it gives this interesting juxtaposition, and the system allowed me to do that. It's with hindrances, with edges, with taking this or that. I was able to get everything I can. It's very fast to put the characters together. And if you weren't playing a superhero, you can completely X off the powers. All you have is your stats and your skills, and then you have a few derived characteristics like pace, toughness, parry. I mean, that's it. And then you're pretty much done. Of course, you're going to buy equipment. In the typical game, you start with whatever the equivalent of $500 is in that system. So you can buy X, Y, or Z. You can take additional edges to make yourself wealthier and so forth. But it allowed all of us to make our character. Why don't you tell them a little bit about the character that you made in Savage Worlds, Mr. Groveland?
Yeah, his like superhero name would be Alpha. He's kind of like a pseudo werewolf. So like he can like turn into like a Krynos style werewolf basically. Is his superpower. He's like an ex-military guy. He was in like a security company, and basically like in our game, like all of our characters got superpowers from this one event, and my character was there doing like security, and um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's kind of like the basic.
Who do you tell them who you use for your face claim?
Oh, Pope from Animal Kingdom. I don't know. I thought he looked like he would be a good fit for like a werewolf and just the character himself as well. So yeah, I mean, I've been enjoying my character. I've been. It's a bit difficult sometimes to um, role play like certain aspects because we've been we just started and everything, and a lot of times my character can't talk because when he uses his powers, basically they have like this thing called a gimmick in the game which you can take as like a flaw. So like if your character needed to put on a suit of armor like Iron Man, or if you needed to transform like the Hulk to activate your powers, basically you would take that. So my character has that, so that's kind of how his like werewolf uh, gimmick works. And when he's using that, he can't talk. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've been enjoying it, yeah, and I've also been enjoying the game just as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, that's going to make a big deal for our first impression. Steve's doing a fantastic job of game mastering. There are a number of other people in the game as well, and everyone seems to be really having a fun time with it. And he's running pretty brutal. One of the characters did get Woogaboo's character. He got destroyed, and he went on the table, and his character got really messed up. So he decided he wanted to make a new character. He should have played his character, I think, but he opted to make a new character. So we have what do we have? 5 people in the game, and I think Steve's friend Chris might be joining us next game session. So that'll be 6 players, and the system seems to be handling it just fine. He didn't like the chase. I liked the chase. We've had 2 chases, one on foot, one on vehicles. I thought those are. I found those very fun. I drove the vehicle during the chase. I think I'm the only character that actually has drive. Your characters can drive without it, but I have only a D4 in it. For Savage Worlds, you get in this edition you get 4 skills you automatically have at a D4, and then you get 12 more points to put into skills. Your skills are tied. Each skill is tied to a stat, but unlike say Vampire, where you take stat and skill and put them together, or D&D where you have your skill ranks, right, and then you have like a stat that maybe adds a bonus to them. The way it works in this game is, for example, if your agility, you only have 5 stats in this game. If you have agility of, say, a D8, you can only raise your athletics to a D8, right? So it goes D4. All your stats start at D4. So you have D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, and then it goes to D12 plus 1, D12 plus 2, D12 plus 3. I think it keeps going. I'm not sure exactly how high that part of it goes, but a human basically only gets up to like a D12. So if you had an athletics of a D8, you can only raise your athletics to a D8, and that's going to cost you. You get an athletics of a D4 for free. Then you would have to spend for a D6. You have to spend one more for a D8. Then you would have to. You could raise it to a D10, but it would cost you, instead of 1 point per, it would cost you 2 points per. So that basically says, hey, look, there are examples of people who aren't that agile, but they are extremely good athletes. And here's the way we're going to bring that into play. However, that's rare, that's strange, and that's probably going to take quite a bit more to get up to that level of athleticism if you just simply don't have that natural inborn talent. So I've liked it, and I think really as long as you can rationally explain your position, rationally explain, okay, why X, Y, and Z is the way it works, then you're going to have, the players should kind of get with it and go, okay, well, that seems good enough, and it seems like a decent enough explanation. But making characters is fast, and I love that. I hate spending a lot of time having to dig through characters. Oh yeah, and of course you got to go through edges and hindrances. And edges, I'm sure, hindrances, I guess, would be the same thing, are the part of the game that's probably going to take the most amount of time. Edges are feats. They're feats. Um, they're really nothing different there. They don't come across the same way, say, merits do in World of Darkness or advantage do within the Ring of Fire. They are themselves simply, really simply feats. They all cost the same, and they all sort of interact in similar ways to that. So it certainly allows for wonderful customization. You don't have classes, so being able to, okay, I'd like to have this power, I'd like to have that power. Like I said, I took attractive, and I took lucky or luck. It's just called luck for my character, because I wanted to play with Bennies more. I wanted to examine the game from a mechanical standpoint because I plan to run it. So I asked Steve, I said, hey, let's have lots of roles. I want not only me, but I want the other people in the group role will be playing in my Elder Skies game. So I want them to be familiar with the system. I want them to be familiar with um, how to run these things. Let's do chases. Let's do tests. Let's do combat and roles, so that we can all become more familiar with these aspects. Running it on a low roll setting is fantastic, except for the fact I need to learn this. So let's pump it up higher so that myself and the other players here have a bit of familiarity with how to run and work and play Suede. I thought I was going to absolutely hate the initiative factor, just throwing the cards out there. I found it works pretty quickly, and I like it. And you can use a Benny to throw back to get a new card, which is good. It allows you, say you get a 2 and you really want to, and it's just, Bennies are almost like a trap, right? With lucky, you get one more. You start with 3, you get one more with that merit. So I'll have 4 sitting there start of the game, and you can get them during the game, but you don't necessarily get that many of them. And when you have a situation like that, and you're having to throw them out, and that's just one. What you get a new initiative card every single round. It's not done once. So, do you want to have to go last this round? And a round you really need to, because you don't. Throwing a Benny Mac doesn't get you a free. Doesn't get you to go where you want. It doesn't add a bonus. It simply means push that card aside. It's gone, and then you get a chance for something else, which potentially even could be worse. So it produces an interesting sort of mini game mentally speaking. You're like, do I want to risk it now or not? What have you been thinking about Benny so far, Mr. Grossman?
I've been.
Foul creature.
I mean, I've been liking them. I think. I think it's nice when you can change something about like a scene in a game as a player. I think that encourages creativity and really allows for it. I think that I don't know. I think it just adds something to the game that's it's very useful. It's very fun. I've been enjoying the mini so far. I think there's lots of scenes where if you hadn't had them, they just wouldn't have happened, or they would have been much less fun. Like one one thing that you can do with them in the superheroes game is power stunts, and I've been liking those because
Explain what power stones are to the people, because they might not know watching the video.
yeah, I was gonna.
Okay.
It's basically like you can spend a Benny, and then you can try to do something at least, which doesn't exactly fit into what your powers would be, but they're kind of in the same vein, you know. And so you can kind of like change them around a little bit to do something that you normally wouldn't be able to. For example, my character was able to climb up a wall when we were kind of like captured in this place, and so we could try to break out. And normally my character wouldn't be able to do that in human form, but I spent a Benny and I was able to, turn my hands into claws and climb up the wall, which I wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't used a Benny to basically get the I think it's called like wall walking,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, superpower temporarily. So yeah, I've been liking those. That's my favorite, I guess you know trait of the bennies. My favorite thing you can do with the bennies.
You can also re-roll skill or stat checks. Sometimes you really need to make those, and that can be really important. Or you can roll to get yourself. Uh, I think you automatically come out of shaken if you spend one, but you can roll to soak if you're taking damage, and you have to spend a Benny to do that. So you can sit there and like you got to be careful about it. 'Cause you look at you four, even three, even just two. You're like, okay, well, I have something here, and then all of a sudden they start. You can assume where you needed them, and then boom, you get hit with something else where you really need them, or you just greedily hold on to them into the game session. Three of them are just sitting there staring back at you. You don't take them between games. So my thoughts are, hey, just try to spin them when and if they have some degree of importance, and not trying to just hold them back. I always have a problem with like in D&D. I hold my potions, I hold my scrolls, and like they'll be way useless at the point I'm sitting there, and often the game's completely done. And I just every potion I've ever gotten, or almost all of them, every scroll, that I couldn't like memorize as an actual spell or whatever it is. Expendable one-shot magic items. I tend to be very like I shouldn't try to use this. I've gotten better about it, but I used to be real bad about that. Like, oh, there's always something bigger. There's always something more important. Let's try to keep this because you only get to use it once. And the fact that the minis go away, I think, is certainly a good thing for that. It encourages you to use them, and using them is the fun part. So you're trying to deny yourself fun by managing that resource, whereas in reality, you need to spend them to have fun. And I think Game Master shouldn't be particularly stingy with them. Steve has given us some extra bennies at times, which is cool. That's a fun thing. Just a little small dopamine hit. You're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I got this new little power here because I role played my hindrance well, or I just role played well, or I'll come up with a cool idea, or whatever. Somehow make the game fun for the game master. Or you get everybody at the table like, oh yeah, and they're really enjoying it, so that you get a little bit of extra reward on that. That's, I think, a wonderful setting. So it interacts a little differently. Like say with D&D, for example, all you're doing is rolling dice, mostly a 20-sided dice. And this you're rolling different dice, right? And you have a wild dice. So if you are a wild card, I think is what they call them. But if you're a star, right, you get to roll. You're just more important. This is how you're getting over. This is how you're getting up better than them. So if I had my character in the Savage World game has a D4 in strength, and he has a D8 in spirit. So spirit is mostly like wisdom, and it has some of the traits of charisma in it, but it's mostly more like wisdom. So it really measures your composure and your ability to like concentrate and your stick to itiveness, right? So if I had to roll strength, I would roll a d4, but I also get to roll a d6 because I'm a wild card on both of those. So then I take the better of them. So I roll my d4 and I roll a 3. Well, that's really not necessarily going to do it, but maybe I get a 4 on the six sider, and that helps me. Now low dice have one advantage over high dice. Dice do something called acing. If you roll the highest number you can, 4 on a d4, 12 on a d12, you re-roll it again and then add that number to it. So it's much easier to ace, obviously, on a d4, but you're still just rolling another d4 and adding it. And the dice can ace a second time as well, or whatever. So that definitely adds it. With under fire, I use explosive dice. I love explosive dice. I think systems that do that, it just adds more fun. And it just, I hate that the wild dice is a d6. I don't like using d6s. They're just board game dice. They're conventional normie dice. They don't have that gamer edge to them. With an Fire, I stayed far away from six siders. I don't really like them in games. I've always kind of hated that some spells like lightning bolt, firewall, and D&D do lots of six siders. Like I'd rather roll even more four siders or maybe slightly less eight siders because to me that is more a role playing game. And of course that's probably just something that is, you know, towards me. I'm sure other people feel that way, but I don't know that that is necessarily a big put off to a lot of people. And there's some role playing games themselves that don't use anything but six siders, and that's stupid as hell. So don't develop a game like that, you fucking jabronis. So be embarrassed of yourself, and your parents should disown you. Honestly, that's the way I would look at it. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So if you have made those games, don't go back to your parents' house. They ain't gonna let you in. They're gonna hit you with a broom. They're gonna run you out of town on a rail, as well you should be. And for your tactics, they are lacking and lackluster. The overall system, though, it's easy to use. It's fun. If you haven't used Savage Worlds, or you haven't played Savage Worlds, give it a try. I like it a lot. Um, what would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, 5 being average, what would you say? What number would you give it, Mr. Grobson?
8?
8.
High
Yeah,
8? Yeah,
high
high
8.
8,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think I agree. I think I agree as well. I would probably also give it an 8 out of 10, which is a very good score. And I think both of us are hard graders. So 8 out of 10, certainly nothing to be ashamed of. Any final words about Savage Worlds, about the first experiences of playing Savage Worlds, or anything that you may be looking forward to with Savage Worlds, Mr. Grossman?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very well put together system, and I've been just like I've been enjoying it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying other settings with it, seeing how they interact.
Yeah, and we have a lot of settings, and certainly, hopefully, we'll get to play a lot of other games here. I guess here, real quick, like just kind of show off some. And I have more books. Some of these are mine, some of these are his. All our books are just kind of sitting here together. We have the Horror Companion. This is the first version of it. They're making the second version of it, which, from having talked to people at Pinnacle, is apparently going to be out at either end of summer or early in the fall. I'll be getting a copy of that. It looks very cool. They are very clearly attempting to dip into the world of darkness. What do we looked at that? They used the words in their thing. They're having like werewolves and vampires that you basically can make as playable characters, and they said something about story. Just in the small caption they use the words storytelling and worlds of darkness inside. This is on their Pinnacle page. I mean, it seems probably close to being something could be sued for. And I know uh, White Wolf, I guess they don't really own it anymore. I don't know who does, but there's certainly been a lot of litigious over the Vampire the Masquerade in the past, and that certainly could be the case. I showed you guys those. This is the second version of the Science Fiction Compendium. This is your book. They don't have. Maybe that'll be the next one to get a third printing. This is the only fantasy companion we have. I will be getting a copy. This one's his. I will be getting a copy of the suede version because this is really old school. And I do like this digest size, the paperback. I like these books. I think these were great. But now they're making everything more of a hardback book. Um, yeah, I think those are good. But um, that should be out, I think, in the end of June or July. The second edition or second version of the Fantasy Compendium, which is going to be a Suede version. That's coming out. And that's, I guess, they use Kickstarter, but they have their own Kickstarting platform on Game Changers, is what it's called. It's on the Pinnacle website, which is pretty cool. There's just some of the other Savage Worlds books. I haven't even looked at that one. I bought a ton of Savage Worlds recently. Day After Ragnarok. Obviously, this one isn't brand. This is new for us, but it's not a new game system. I thought that some interesting things in here. Here's 50 Fathoms, and this one's yours. And I think that we'll probably be playing a lot of games in the Savage Worlds and the Sir Evil. Which this is it's pretty neat conceptually. You play as a super all the superheroes are gone, and you're playing super villains that have to be the good guys because the world is in a lot of trouble and they live in the world. That's what their stuff is. And I've always really been drawn to that sort of idea. I always loved when the bad guys had to do the right thing because, you know, it doesn't matter if you're robbing banks and doing whatever. If the world is going to end and you know it's going to end, you're probably going to have to stand up and do something because it basically means you're going to die. And anyone you care about's going to die. So Sundered Skies, and these I've had for a very long time. So we have, I think that was all that was out. I think there might be a fourth Sundered Sky book, and there's Slipstream. That one's yours. And I also have, I'm not going to try to yank it out. It's going to be a pain. I got the Realms of Cthulhu book. You can't see it. It's past all my Call of Cthulhu stuff. I probably need to put it with the Savage World stuff. And then, there's a few other books over here in the pile that, we have. We have Accursed, which I don't know if I'll ever even use this, but it looks kind of neat. I basically got it. It seemed to have rules for playing werewolves and flesh golems and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to look it over. And this is like just Savage Worlds and Hell all over the place. The Savage Guide to Hell. So this looks like, and I think it's for both modern and probably science fiction as well as fantasy. And on the front, it's got the classic fantasy stuff. You have a wizard, maybe an elf. You have what is this? Some type of archer, and then you have the probably like the cleric. He's got a shield and his warhammer, and he's looking good at that ass, and rightfully so. So overall, we're enjoying Savage Worlds. We're looking to dig more into it. We're looking to play, like you said, more settings, do more stuff with Savage Worlds. I'm very interested in that. I haven't been out there as running Savage Worlds online or anything like that. If you are, let me know. And thanks to the guys that put this game together. Well done.